Warning, Star Trek from the Holodeck contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue to listen.
Lock and load!
Fire!
Holodeck 3 program is reinstated.
Open sesame!
Commander Klingon vessel. We are energizing transporter beam. Now.
Warp 1, engage!
Here we are, everyone. Welcome to Star Trek from the Holodeck, the Discovery Edition. All right, I am Michael, your host, and in the studio with me is my compadre and my version of Arium. Hello, David.
I believe my memories are all intact.
Well, you save all the memories relating to me, I hope. Or do you delete them every time you leave the studio? Fuck this guy. Delete it.
Put into memory banks about...
Tilly. Save
Tilly.
all memories of Tilly.
Save all memories of Tilly.
And Detmer. That's it. I don't know, maybe Cornwell. Cornwell was, she's actually kind of attractive, isn't she?
Power is attractive.
Maybe that's what it is, because I am attracted to strong, like, powerful women. In fact, I want to be the subservient one in that relationship.
Well, I mean, like, look, I mean, you had a weakness to Giorgio, Empress Giorgio.
That's true. There's a trend here.
There's a trend.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about and breaking down Season 2, Episode 9, Project Daedalus, the synopsis. The Discovery crew infiltrates Section 31's headquarters, and suspicions arise that the crew may have a traitor in their midst. Meanwhile, Burnham tries to help Spock, but her efforts don't go as planned. Jonathan Frakes returns to direct the 9th episode of the season with a script by Michelle Paradise, the future co-showrunner starting next season. But I'm sure her leadership will start to show a bit more as the season winds to a close and they start setting up for next year's story. This episode, Dave, wasted no time jumping from one scene to the next. It was a very fast-paced episode with a fair amount of character development. We've been talking about Detmer and Arium, also getting more development, and this episode took us there briefly, showing the camaraderie of the crew and using Arium at the center of that. They needed to do this. If Michelle Paradise and Jonathan Frakes were hoping to evoke an emotional response when the audience was supposed to and feel like it worked, they needed to do this, and I was happy to get glimpses into Arium's past, although just a bit. I think we could have used a little bit more, but for the purposes of this episode, it did work.
Yeah, I think it worked because, like, Jonathan Frakes, I swear, dude, I mean, he knows how to get as much as he can from a story.
He can take that script and just wring it out, dude.
And wring it out.
Yeah.
He knows how to actually get those emotional beats right down pat.
Yeah.
And dude, this one was just on point.
Television is definitely an ambitious piece of storytelling that you definitely need a qualified director to do, but you got to remember Jonathan Frakes is also from the film side of things. This guy directed numerous Star Trek episodes. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. And we get to benefit from his expertise with episodes like this.
Yeah.
So I'm also, I have to thank the fucking gods that Section 31 is not the enemy. I knew they wouldn't go that direction.
I was happy with that.
You and I both discussed that last week. It would have been more of the same, and this season is less about trying to be clever and more focused on writing a concise, serialized narrative that doesn't seem to be designed to retread on familiar scenarios, which works, despite what some naysayers said about last week's episode and how they made a 50-year plus callback for the sole purpose of nostalgia. And I completely disagree, especially Dave. And I don't know if you drew these connections here, but especially after this week's episode. If you remember, Dave, we discussed the philosophical aspects of the cage and what it meant.
Yes.
If anything, that idea was strengthened further with the reveal of who or what is behind the attacks on Irium, Section 31, and sentient life.
Yeah, I was really happy with the fact that they didn't go that route where, oh, it's Section 31's the villain. It's something better. It's something greater.
It's something
different.
Something new, Dave.
And
something new.
That's why when that reveal happened, it started you started seeing actually them start to develop the villain of this season. Because that was the big question mark for me going into this episode.
For all of us, it was the mystery of the season.
What was the mystery of the season? Who is the cause of the great calamity that Spock is trying to stop?
Right.
And now we're getting little tidbits and we're getting hints at who they are. And I'm really psyched that where they're going.
Yeah, I like it too. And we plan to discuss all of this thoroughly and break down all of it after our first break. But first, a few more things. We also learned a bit more about Burnham and Spock's issues. We also learned that the Federation views Pike as an incredible asset, that his values are to be cherished and protected. Loved it.
Loved it.
Love that part. Talk about respecting and securing a legacy of a very iconic character in Star Trek. Fantastically done.
Well, not just that, but just protecting Star Trek's lineage is because you
as a whole,
and
what it represents.
We gotta remember, Pike is the very first captain of the Enterprise to us fans, and heritage-wise, there's nothing better than that.
Canon-wise, he's not the first captain.
Canon-wise, he's not. But I mean, to us fans, he is the first captain of the Enterprise. When you ask Star Trek fans who was the first captain of the Enterprise that we've seen, is Captain Pike.
I say Archer.
We try to forget that one.
We're going to get into all of that, but first, let's talk about this article that has surfaced recently via TrekMovie.com, and it has to do with Star Trek Discovery's costumer talking about some potential things we may see by the end of this season. Interestingly, Dave, the costumer says the scant will make an appearance this season. Now, do you remember what the scant is? You will in a second. Costume designer Gersha Phillips spoke with Daily Dot about the second half of season 2. Among the topics discussed were, of course, Vina's look from last week's episode and a certain unisex uniform variant from early TNG era. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're bringing back the man skirt, Dave.
The man skirt.
The man skirt. Well, okay, according to the interview, she says we have a plan to bring it back. They haven't come out yet. They will be in the later season. I was looking for a particular character to do it on, and we didn't have anybody specific. It'll come up closer to the end, but we did do it, and we will try to do it going forward. She says it's true that it's always been there for Star Trek, apart from the original series and the J.J. Abrams remake. They have maintained a really cool non-binary look throughout. So I think that for us going forward, it was really important to do that as well. Our intention is definitely to do them for both men and women. So, Dave, we're going to be able to see some nice, sexy man legs. Are you looking forward to that?
Oh, yeah. It's going on. That has to go on to our favorite scientist in Discovery, Stamets.
You think Stamets is going to wear a scant?
Yes.
Why do you want to objectify poor Scant? Jesus, the poor guy is going through enough. Now you want to objectify the guy?
Hey, he has to actually get, the doctor's attention somehow.
That's how he does it. He wears the scant. He's all, hey, Calder, come here. I know you're moving out, but I'm wearing this scant and I have no panties on. Turn around, Stamets. Show us that booty. Oh my God. I was going to suggest maybe Pike is going to be wearing him. Like, that would be kind of silly.
That would be so weird.
Pike's on the bridge of the scant. They can't put it on one of our main characters, Dave, because I feel like we would all laugh and it would be so distracting. So I understand why they're waiting, because they do have to find the right scenario and the right person.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the problem with actually people constantly saying, well, we got to work our way to where we know where all the visuals go to in TNG.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, fortunately, the scant is like one of the things that just sticks out in everyone's mind is like, we have to explain why the uniforms turned this way. So personally, I think it'd be hilarious actually seeing some of our characters wearing it.
No, I agree.
But yeah, you're right. If it's a main character, it's a little it's
a little distracting. And I don't want to see Tilly in one. I don't want to see any of our main actors.
Oh, you want to see Tilly in one.
In a scant now.
Detmer?
Detmer? I don't know. I like bodysuits. I like that. Dave, I like to use my imagination. So if I see too much, it kills the mood. So I need that scant because then I'll be like, oh, look, it just a little bit up and there's some action going on. All right. So TrekMovie.com also had a little bit, some snippets of an interview from Wilson Cruz as well on his preparation as Colbert. To prepare for Colbert's dramatic transformation and storyline, Cruz immersed himself in culture related to trauma. Fuck, that's dark, dude.
That's dark.
He listened to music of folk singer Patty Griffin, as well as the audiobook from Cormac McCarthy's harrowing dystopian novel, The Road. That's dark. I've read it.
Yes, I've read that too.
Which was, he says, useful in imagining desperation and the bleakness of the end of the world and the end of existence. Holy shit. Wilson Cruz is a dark motherfucker.
Right now, yes.
I love it, though. I love that. I love when actors, immerse themselves in material that will help their performance.
Because it comes through. It really does.
I'll be honest, I didn't really care about Wilson Cruz's character during the first season. I was intrigued by his whole demeanor because we've never seen a doctor quite like him on board a vessel on any of our ships. But I was like, okay, their story is fine. But it felt like kind of shoehorned in. I don't really know what it did for the overall story last season. But I am actually really fucking excited to see what they do with him now, moving forward. And honestly, I feel like Colbert and Stamets are way more interesting separate.
Yeah, they are.
Like I don't like Stamets in like groveling mode. Like, hi honey, how are you doing? I love you. Like I just want him to. I want to see him be a badass engineer and come up with these cool things with Tilly. That's my favorite version of Stamets.
Well, see, my whole point is I like them apart because it creates that almost that insight into the character. Seeing that vulnerability of both characters actually makes them more than two-dimensional.
It makes them more interesting.
It makes them more interesting.
It makes them more interesting. And absolutely.
Honestly, when Colbert got reintroduced, I was hoping they would go this route where they just can't simply just say, hi, I'm back. And he's A-okay, brand new body, who cares? They actually added more elements to it that made Colbert so much more interesting. And I want to see more. Like in this past episode, I was literally thinking to myself, what is Colbert doing right now? Because he's the only character that we didn't see. And we know that he's the most fucked up right now. Because, as Spock alluded to,
him and Ash Tyler are banging it out to work out their problems.
You just hear this like screaming and yelling.
Yeah. Maybe there's some sexual tension there. Maybe they need to work through that.
But just like what Spock alluded to is like, it's not Stamets' issue that Colbert had. It's Colbert's own issues of him being back, that he's not feeling himself. And I like that. It alludes to the problem with Colbert, not Stamets.
No, I agree. And it is definitely more exciting now, this direction they're taking with both these characters. I feel like, it absolutely does work for development purposes, if anything. And it makes you a little more intrigued. Like, oh, suddenly Colbert's no longer just a side piece. For me last year, it felt like Stamets was the focus and Colbert was just a side piece.
Side piece, yeah.
Like, hey, don't pay attention to my side piece. Now it feels like he's a real character. Now that they kind of separated the two of them, he now can stand on his own 2 feet, and he's that much more interesting. That's
the thing that I'm starting to see with Discovery, that they're characters now that I really do. I want to see more about, that Discovery has introduced more of, about, like Colbert, the engineer that we haven't seen a lot since she was introduced in a couple episodes back.
I was hoping we did. What was her name? I forgot her name now.
See, that's the thing. Is like
we don't even remember her name.
I can't remember her name, but she was so interesting that I'm like, going, she had to be. They need more time with her.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm like going, this is the issue that is with a giant ensemble cast.
Yeah, but I mean, we also need to realize what the story's about, who the story's about, and who our focus is. So I'm not complaining, but I get what the show's about. So let's go to a quick break, Dave, and then when we get back, we're gonna jump into this entire episode and break everything down. All right?
Gotcha.
We'll be right back.
Slip the dogs of war.
Everything!
What are you looking at, nerd? Huh?
I thought I was looking at my mother's old douchebag, but that's in Ohio.
Geek Out Saturdays.
And then, like, ants eat your remains. Like, those books got real dark.
For kids.
Or, like, one of them, like, you get...
The fact that Marvel's been doing it for 10 years doesn't mean it's easy.
Hold on, though. Take Marvel out of the equation and forget that they don't even exist. Television has been doing this for decades.
And I stumbled upon it while I was hunting alligators. And this guy starts whistling at you. He beckons you. So I thought it was a mission, like a side mission. So I went, and then I realized what it was when it was too late. I walked in, the guy starts...
And that's how they go out. Like, because the rebirth, when they ditched the New 52, because the New 52, they weren't always on the best of terms, they're back together, or, they end up getting back together because they feel something they don't know. They just feel like the universe is pulling them together.
Catch up on your favorite Rain Man digital geek shows every Saturday. DC on CW, Back to Tank, Weird West Radio, The Crossroads, and more. Geek Out Saturday on Rain Man Channel 001.
The Rain Man Show. The Rain Man Show.
Please, Lauren,
we got a gem
something
from Florida. Pensacola woman mistakes 37-week pregnancy for bad Chinese food.
What?
She was actually 37 weeks pregnant. She was on the verge of giving birth to her second son. She's already been pregnant before. This is like, how? Were you drunk the entire pregnancy before this?
Probably.
So she called off work at 5 a.m. and an hour later, as the pain worsened, she woke her fiance up because they needed to call an ambulance. The stomach pains were excruciating and I could hardly move. I think it was about 6:30 a.m.
Wake up!
This goddamn orange chicken's ripping a hole in me.
Hold on, wake up, Chad! Wake up! I think I ate too much at the local Chinese buffet.
I told you too much of that moose shoe pork was going to do this.
Oh, please! I need to go to the emergency room. Oh, please! One time I heard my cousin Elvira tell me something similar happened to her. She ate at the local little Chinese restaurant and she almost died.
She had cream of Sicilian guy.
I should have had the steamed rice.
It escalated so quickly that I was having contractions, and we figured out kind of what was going on, because at first we really didn't know what was going on. But there was a doctor, she said it was possible for a woman to learn of her pregnancy just hours before going into labor, but in her 20 years of practice, she's only witnessed it 3 times.
Oh, please. Something's happened to my bowels.
My bowels?
You gotta take me to the emergency room, Jethro, please. I don't know what's happening.
All right, get in the goddamn airboat. We'll drive on down to the local...
For some reason, the Chinese buffet's coming out of my pussy. I don't know why.
For more Rain Man, visit RainManShow.com.
Amazon Prime. Reward yourself with some entertainment. Receive all the benefits of Amazon Prime, including free 2-day shipping for eligible purchases, unlimited streaming of movies and TV shows with Prime Video, and the ability to borrow books from the Kindle owners. Lending library for only $99 a year. But don't forget, you do get a free trial. Head over to RainManDigitalMedia.com, click on the Amazon link, and start your free trial today. You will not be disappointed. It's well worth it. So not only are you going to get free shipping on almost every item you purchase through Amazon, but also you're going to receive Prime movies and Amazon original television programs like Man in the High Castle, which is a must-see. Plus, you get free streaming of music. There really is no other service like this I can think of. So Amazon Prime, head over to RainManDigitalMedia.com, click on the Amazon
free 30-day trial on our link and get started on Amazon Prime.
Free stuff is awesome, but free stuff that will spice up your bedroom is even better. Just go to adamandeve.com and select almost any one item for 50% off, and then we'll load on the free stuff. Just enter this very exclusive code, RAINMAN, at checkout, and you'll get 10 tantalizing free gifts, including a sexy item for him, a special toy for her, and a third item you'll both enjoy. And 6 extra special bonus items that are sure to rev your engine, pique your curiosity, and even blow you away. Plus, free shipping! Always sent in discreet packaging. Go to adamandeve.com now. Get 50% off plus the 10 free gifts when you enter the exclusive offer code RAINMAN. Again, that's RAINMAN, because without it, no free stuff. That's RAINMAN at adamandeve.com.
A ship in trouble making a forced landing, sir.
It comes from the Talos Star Group.
Their call letters check with a survey expedition.
My name is Christopher Pike, commander of the Space Vehicle Enterprise. Our destination is the Talos Star Group.
There's a canyon to the left. We can set you down there completely unobserved.
I think it's time to show the captain our secret.
This is Vina. Her parents are dead. She was born almost as we crashed.
This is all some sort of trap. Are you real?
Perhaps they made me out of dreams you've forgotten.
Is there any way I can keep them from probing my mind, from using my thoughts against me?
I can't help but love you.
Let's get back to the ship.
I can't go with you.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Star Trek from the Holodeck, the Discovery Edition. If you miss any part of this broadcast because you're listening to us on our 24/7 stream, RM channel 001, you can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. Just search Star Trek from the Holodeck, add us to your favorites. Also, if you dig our show, please share it. Don't be afraid to share it on Facebook, like us on Twitter, retweet us, because it helps our show get seen by more people. It helps trigger those algorithms that Twitter and social media in general use. So please help us out. All right. Let's start with that fucking fantastic introduction this week. I adore the cinematography and overall motif of the show.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
The director of photography, Glenn Keenan, never, ever ceases to amaze me at least once during an episode. And in this episode, it was Admiral Cornwell's intro to the episode. The camera was probably on a jib, and I loved how the overall shot was executed. The camera started out over the shuttle, then drifted towards Saru and Pike, and then settled behind them just in time to catch Cornwell exiting the craft. The camera movement with intent to invoke emotional response, whether it be tangible or something a bit abstract, are always the best camera movements and camera choices that a DOP can make. This particular shot was a great way to symbolize the idea that something is amiss, something subversive is manipulating events, something slightly out of reach, and it's watching as the crew strategizes, unknown to everyone else. Loved what it did for the episode. It was such a great way to, I want to say, bring the audience in to the episode and let us know potentially what the crew is feeling.
Yeah.
Great camera choice.
This is an example of visual setup. What I always think of as visual setup. And you can see master DPs, they know what to do.
Double penetration?
Not that way.
Oh.
But like when you are able as a director of photography to actually set up you're basically told, I need you to set it up the tone for the show or movie or whatever. This is an example of this. This is like harken back to talk about like how to set up a tone like Return of the Jedi. Thinking about Star Wars outside of Star Trek. The shot of Return of the Jedi when they do the whole shuttlecraft scene where Darth Vader makes his entrance, right? It invokes a certain tone, like a tone of like bad guys coming, dread, stuff like that. Here, if you look at it, it's the same type of technique, but this way he's using it to actually invoke kind of like what you said, a sense of unease, a sense of what's going to happen next. Okay, it's fast paced. Bang. Here's where we are. We want you to question what the hell's going on. Why is she in that craft? What is that craft? Why does it look different? All those different things, and all with the camera movement, it gives you that sense of disorientation. I hope that's like the proper term I'm using, is disorientation, where it's like it leaves the audience guessing what's going to happen next.
Yeah, it does great for evoking those emotions for sure.
Those emotions.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk Captain Pike. Captain Pike reminded us all again that they missed the Klingon War. This has definitely been a part of his own personal hurdles this season, part of his own personal development as a character. The writers continue to remind us of this guilt of missing the war and his need to prove that he's a capable captain with the ability to command under duress, war, etc., right?
Yes.
And it was done in a very neat and Star Trek kind of way. They managed to wrap that aspect up just a bit when it comes to his guilt. I love that Michelle Paradise respects Pike's legacy so much that she put the morality of the Federation and Starfleet on the shoulders of this one character.
Yes.
What a wonderful way to pay respect to what came before and use it to craft a story that makes sense to the roots of Star Trek, all while fixing or justifying the decisions that some Trek fans had problems with last season with the whole Klingon War situation. The idea that Pike's values and principles are so valued that they purposely left him out of the war and fear that those values
would be
that
destroyed.
they cherished could be lost forever, knowing that they need people like him to realign the Federation after the war was over.
Because if you think about it, the way that they're portraying Pike throughout this season is he is kind of like a throwback to a TNG type of character, the Picard type of Starfleet officer who wants to negotiate first, doesn't want to jump into the flanks, and wants to immediately, shoot first, ask questions later.
He embodies the Starfleet Federation ideology.
Yeah. He
is the poster. He's the poster boy of that.
Uh-huh.
And it works.
He like a lot of the decisions that Pike's been making, I've been always thinking to myself, this is kind of like what Picard would actually be thinking. Not Kirk, but Picard.
Hey, but he's also a little more casual,
He's
a little more
casual,
laid back and forgiving than any other captain. And I think that works a lot with this set of ideology or set of principles that he governs himself.
Yeah.
It actually fits with him being this, if anything, I feel like at this point he is the poster boy of Federation and Starfleet ideals.
Starfleet, yes.
I loved it. I mean, just well done, Michelle Paradise, right, Dave? I mean, first episode she wrote of the season, and she just knocks it out of the park and truly demonstrates her understanding of Star Trek.
Well, that's the thing. Remember, in past interviews, it was said that bringing in Michelle Paradise, it amazed a lot of the writers how much passion and knowledge she had in Star Trek.
Yeah.
So that's why this episode, it really came out. She knew how Pike, a character like Pike, is important, what to do to actually cherish that heritage or legacy.
Yeah.
And not just with Pike, but everybody else, even like with the character Spock. She understood about how those characters should be. And it came full circle in this episode. And that's why, honestly, dude, I'm really excited so far what Michelle Paradise can do for Discovery. Yeah, she's kind of co-piloting the rest of season 2, but season 3, it's going to be interesting what she's able to do.
Yeah.
And what she brings.
She definitely got my attention after this episode for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this season's main myth arc, Dave, came to a head this week. We received some answers to some very big questions that have kept the season's overall narrative, for the most part, cohesive and consistent, as a myth arc should. And praise be to the Vulcan philosopher Surak that Section 31 is not caught up in the middle of all this nonsense. I said it last week. I really don't want to see Section 31 being painted as the enemy yet again. I don't mind having Section 31 as some kind of literary device to, I guess, cleverly create a philosophical debate, either overtly or via subtext. But as a baddie, we've been there.
That's why
we've been there, Dave.
I was so happy with that twist when they found out.
This is how you fucking do a twist.
Yeah, that's how you do a twist. When you find out, spoilers, that basically the admiral in question of Section 31 is dead. And she's been dead for 2 weeks.
Man, when I saw those bodies floating, I figured that's what it was. I'm like, holy shit, none of this actually happened. Like, Section 31 is not involved. The moment they beamed over and it was a morgue, essentially just a ghost town, I figured there was something else at play than just simply Section 31.
That was an awesome scene visually. I thought they got it down.
But the floating blood, David, the floating blood,
the frozen blood.
It's so bad. Why are they showing blood in Star Trek again? Star Trek's never showed blood before, Dave.
And it was a really great scene to set up like this overall twist. And you're right. This is how you set up a proper twist.
Yes.
You know, this is not a M. Night Shyamalan type of twist. This is simple narrative twist.
That makes sense, Dave.
That makes sense.
They're not trying to blow our minds. Like last season, I felt like they were trying to be, Fight Club 2.0.
Yes.
Like, hey, guys, we're going to blow your mind. Well, but what's your story? No, never mind that. We're going to blow your mind.
Now pull down your pants.
Well, I might like that. Well, I would wear a scant. They could just lift up my dress.
Just lift up their dress.
No, I was very happy that this week that Section 31 was not involved necessarily with the bad things going on, and that they had been compromised. I felt like that was a much better choice and direction to take this season's narrative. We are led to believe that the actual villains of the season have gained control over Section 31 and even murdered the leaders of the covert organization and was in complete control of what Starfleet calls control. Now, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. Have we heard this before?
It did sound familiar. That's why I was trying to research that earlier, is something about control. And I
think this might be exclusive to Discovery, Dave. I don't think, and if we're wrong, please tweet us at From the Holodeck.
Because a part of me was like saying, I think they've ran into a computer in the original series that was like this, where it was called Control, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, we'll do some research. I couldn't find anything on my own, but if there's any listeners out there that want to share some information with us, please school us. Usually we don't ask to be schooled, but you can school us. Facebook.com/Star Trek From the Holodeck. Post over there, or on Twitter From the Holodeck. I did feel like this was interesting, though, this whole control aspect, and it was interesting because apparently Starfleet handed over its tactical decision-making to this experimental AI that Section 31 housed at their base.
Yep.
This AI orchestrated, apparently, the whole thing that put Spock on the most wanted list and infiltrated the Discovery through Irium. I guess we can assume that eventually this artificial intelligence wins, and this is why the Red Angel has taken actions against them or it. Now, Dave, I'm going to go through a bullet point here. I have put the entire season's narrative so far in a bullet point.
Okay,
into an outline here, and I'm going to briefly read each bullet point so that we can take that data and reflect on it, because I think we have most of the story now. Okay, so just to make it clear for everyone else, because this episode was, I don't want to say it was confusing, because it was written well, but it is a complicated episode that you do need to pay very careful attention to.
There's a lot of layers going on.
There's a lot. So let's make it clear for everyone else. This is what I made of this week's episode. Starfleet handed over decision-making to an AI at some point. The Red Angel seeks out Spock, shows him glimpses of the future. This AI either plots to take control on its own or influenced by a third party to do so. The AI from the future takes control of Irium after the events of Brightest Star, when Pike and Tyler were being pulled into the Time Rift. The AI steals data from the red sphere, more precisely, data that includes any and all information on artificial intelligence. Ariam, before her death, tells Burnham all of this is because of her, because of Burnham. Now, I think we can assume as of right now, and please, if you disagree or you feel that there's some discrepancies, Dave, jump in. I think we can assume as of right now that the AI that Starfleet created to make tactical decisions evolved over time and started manipulating things that would eventually bring about the end of all sentient life. And when the time rift occurred, a more advanced version of that AI crossed over to speed the process along.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you got the same...
I got the same vibe.
All right.
I got the same vibe of it. And now, like, the question becomes is, like,
why?
We all know...
Why, though?
Yes.
That's the question. Why? And is there anybody else involved? And why did the Red Angel take it upon themselves to save the day and stop this from happening? Now, Dave, I'm calling it now. I'm calling this. Here's another theory I have.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for it? So many of the complaints or concerns we hear about this show is the Redux vibe. Oh, they're redoing it. The blatant ignoring of Star Trek canon is one thing, but now you're ignoring the technology aspect of that. Okay? Personally, I don't have issues with this because they've repeatedly stated in interviews that they will explain all of this eventually. Why the Discovery is so advanced. Why is there this technology that's out there, holograms and computer terminals that aren't there, they're just holographic projections. I have a feeling the ship Discovery has a very bleak destiny.
Well, we know it does.
Yes. Okay. Yes, we do. From the Short Trucks episode.
From Calypso.
But I have a feeling it will be mothballed and the advanced technology will be ripped from the ships, just like Pike told Number One to do with the Enterprise. They won't be able to rely on the tech anymore. It's all been compromised because of this AI. And now we have ships that will be more aligned with what we know of Trek. Because a lot of this, even this more advanced technology that we see in Discovery, we didn't even see that in the Kelvin timeline in the Enterprise. The Discovery and what we see technology-wise is even more advanced than that, than J.J. Abrams' 2009 reboot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So this would be a great way to explain why Trek doesn't have all of this technology that we see Discovery, because we've never seen vessels like this.
Yeah, we don't. What happens to the spore drive?
And the
spore drive just blows everything away.
And they kind of clued us in, Dave. They kind of clued us in the very first episode, or was it the third episode, when Pike had that conversation with Number One? He said, just rip it all out. It's not interfacing well with the Enterprise. In fact, that's the reason why they weren't compromised. If you remember, they said that all the ships were having issues. So what did the Enterprise do? They ripped out the tech and they streamlined their vessel, and they weren't affected by any of these AI influences, right?
Yes.
Okay. So wouldn't it make sense then if that is how we get Star Trek technology aligned with Star Trek canon? Or I should say Star Trek Discovery technology aligned with what we know of in Star Trek canon.
I could definitely see that. I could see them taking that route because they have to explain it, and they've already promised that they would.
And it actually would make sense. It would make perfect sense, Dave, if this is the reason why they gutted vessels of this type of technology, because of the fear of an AI taking over control of their ships and over their decision making. And ultimately, this works seamless, Dave, with Roddenberry's original pilot. And I hinted at this at the top of the show today. This works seamless with Roddenberry's original pilot, The Cage. Handing over decision-making to an AI fits perfectly with the philosophical aspects of the original first episode of Trek. We talked about this last week. There was a thought here in the episode titled The Cage that he had hoped to share about technology and advancement. Physical, mental, societal advancement are all good things, but we have to remember to never lose our humanity in the process. The warning of allowing tech to take over and consume our lives. So suddenly, those trolls saying that Discovery is utilizing unnecessary callbacks and nostalgia should be silenced after this episode. Well, Dave, at least if they allow themselves to watch the show without hating, and they have a semblance of deductive reasoning skills and an affinity toward philosophical insight, then they should be able to see exactly what they're doing. And now, not only was that callback last week so fucking cool, it actually works for the story.
It works for the story.
And the overall theme of the show this season, dude.
Yes.
So I really dug how they managed to flesh out the Irium issue and her interactions with the crew. Jonathan Frakes and Michelle Paradise using a sense of casualness and camaraderie to get there quick. All worked.
It all worked.
All worked.
And you can see it too, because like now this is just speculative, but you can actually see it from all the little tidbits that they put into this episode that they're going this route, because when they find out that basically everything that they've been seeing so far has been doctored by this AI, and all the holograms that they've been seeing has been doctored.
They don't know how can you trust anything?
How can you trust anything?
Yeah.
So what is the simplest thing to do? Take out every single little tidbit of that technology, rip it out, get rid of it, and go down to a simple and clean type of motif when it comes to your tech. And honestly, when you think about it, for all hardcore Star Trek fans, this aligns well with Gene Roddenberry's original concept of how technology goes in Star Trek.
We should love technology, but we should also look at it with a weary eye.
And
be aware of what technology can do.
Yeah. And on top of that, if you look back at the old production notes of Gene Roddenberry said it himself. The way he pictured technology, how it progressed, was to a simpler and smoother, clean type of interface. So with all this in Discovery being before everything, original series and everything, and you have all these advanced technologies and you have all this clutter, they suddenly at the end of Discovery, they rip it all out. And they start going down the path that Gene Roddenberry said, where it's simpler, smoother, cleaner.
Yeah.
And it's a better interface. It makes sense.
Yeah. I am stoked. I really can't wait to see where the story goes, Dave.
I am too. After this episode, the possibilities are just endless where they can go.
So, Dave, do you think now, after this week's episode, people that were speculating, I'm not saying any names, that the Borg are somehow involved in this season?
Well, Michael, I mean, educated people would come up with a proper way of how the Borg could fit into this.
Yeah, well, okay.
However,
now, Dave, now that we know that with pretty much absolute certainty, we're moving into episode 10 now. 10. We only have a few more episodes left to go. I think we can say that the AI, we may not know everything, but the AI is the villain of the season.
Oh, absolutely.
There's still some questions. There's still some mystery for us to unravel. But for now, I think it's safe to say the AI are the villains. And I'm hoping that this whole Borg speculation just goes away, because it doesn't make any sense. I know we were talking about this before we went live today.
Yes.
During our pre-show, we were talking about the Borg and if they could be connected. And it just doesn't make any sense, Dave, because if the Red Angel is showing Spock a future where all sentient life has been killed off and the only thing that remains is artificial intelligence, how can the Borg survive, live, and be the villain then?
Without the organic.
The Borg they are not AIs. They are cybernetic beings. And in order for them to survive and evolve, they need sentient life. They assimilate. They don't learn on their own. The only way they learn and evolve is by assimilating new cultures. Yeah. So why would they kill off their only source, essentially, of food?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't fit the MO of the Borg. That's the big thing.
And plus, it would be cheap and lazy for them to be like, oh, and guess what, guys? The Borg are the villains.
Yeah, and like what I mentioned off the air and stuff before our pre-show. The problem with the Borg concept, because The first thing I did this morning was go online, and I went to the Star Trek fan site, and everybody under the sun was labeling, it's the Borg, it's the Borg, it's the Borg.
It doesn't
it's
even
the Borg
make
from
sense.
the future. The one concept that everyone's constantly forgetting about the Borg is the Borg don't want to kill you.
No, they want to assimilate
you.
Their battle is not with sentient life. Their battle is with individual thought.
Here was the funny part. I actually watched Best of Both Worlds just 2 days ago. The part 1 and part 2. The one thing that just popped in my brain this morning that I'm like going, it's not the Borg, is the scene where Picard as Locutus looks at Worf and they start talking, and Picard says, "Why do you continue to fight? We can just assimilate you. We are out to better all sentient life." When I thought about that, that is not what this AI wants to do in Discovery. The AI in Discovery wants to terminate all life, not assimilate. It wants to terminate all living life in the galaxy.
Now, I'm not saying the Borg couldn't work. They could find, maybe in order for the Borg to survive, they have tried time and time again to defeat humankind. Maybe they decided to do away with the cybernetic part of their collective and decided to create a future where they solely rely on artificial intelligence. That's it. That's the source of their brain capacity now. That's what they decided to use in order to survive and defeat humans. Or humanity. Dude, that would be so fucking convoluted and awful. And Michelle Paradise, Kurtzman, and the writers this year are they're so fucking on point this year. I cannot imagine them going down such an easy, lazy route.
They'd have to really, really put some stellar writing behind it.
Dave, they're working so hard this year. So hard. And that would be such an easy route to go that decision doesn't really reflect the type of writing we're getting this year.
And the one thing that I thought about this morning too, because yes, in the last episode that we did, I threw out there that it's the Borg.
Well, that's also before you knew of the AI thing,
before
right?
I knew about the whole AI thing. Now that I know, there's so many different AI quote unquote species out there in Star Trek. Why does it have to be the Borg? It could be a multitude. It could be a brand new AI species, because we know that there's machine species out there in Star Trek. I'm sorry, Star Trek the motion picture, V'ger, he came from a machine society. We don't know anything about it, but we know it wasn't the Borg. And we know that basically there are...
Hey guys, guess what? In this massive universe, there might be more than just one villain that uses robotic parts.
Exactly. And I after I thought about it, okay, yeah, all this Borg talk is just
it's simpleton thought.
It's simpleton thought.
It's low brain power trying to speculate on a show that requires high brain power to consume and understand everything they're doing. Yeah, I just blew this show and said it's highly intelligent. This season it is.
This season it is.
A season? What are you, Sean Connery? This season is strong. I am the Highlander.
I am the Highlander.
It's live read time, Dave. Patreon.com/RainManDigital. Now, you and I, Dave, were just talking about the pre-show. There probably are a lot of listeners out there that don't realize that we offer a pre-show as well. Anywhere between a 10 to 20-minute discussion before we actually do our regular show. Kind of getting the jitters out. We fanboy a little bit more. We talk about this and that, all relating to Star Trek. But it's our way of kind of getting prepped for the main discussion. There's a lot of thought in there sometimes, Dave, that I want to kick myself. I'm like, shit, I should have saved that for the regular show. But there's some good discussions going on there for sure. So head over to patreon.com/RainManDigital and pledge $3 or more a month to gain access to those pre-shows. Or if you pledge $5 or more a month, you gain access to our podcast tier that gives you a whole plethora of additional Star Trek discussions every single month, as well as the pre-show. So you get everything below that tier as well. So patreon.com/RainManDigital, pledge. Help us out. Help us keep the lights on in the studio. We do a lot of work. It takes about 3 or 4 hours to prep each show. Yes, it does. Lots of work is done on these show notes. All right. Let's talk about Spock and Burnham, Dave.
Things got really interesting.
They focused a good portion of this episode on their relationship and the problems they both face because of their upbringing. And I really dug what they did this week with that. Spock being a bit passive aggressive.
A bit?
Okay. Aggressive this week. He was also passive aggressive, but there was definitely moments where he was very aggressive.
Yes.
Minus the passive. He's bothered by Burnham's approach. And I have a feeling that, yeah, he understands why Burnham did what she did, as he said. But at the same time, that creates a lot of damage on a child's development. And you can't reverse that. Even if you understand why someone did something, it's not going to repair the hurt that you went through as a child, the trauma. Not to mention the amount of jealousy I'm sure he rightfully feels. Burnham appears to have gotten the better side of both of their parents. And that kind of sucks. Imagine that. Imagine your parents bringing in an adopted son or daughter, right? And suddenly they get the best sides of both of the parents. Meanwhile, you get the roughest, toughest sides.
Yep.
I mean, that's got to affect a child and the way they grow up. How would you not feel animosity toward your adopted sibling?
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense to have those feelings towards that person.
And it fits so well within the narrative of Spock's entire life, because we know that basically his relationship with Sarek was very tenuous at best. I mean, we see
very contentious.
And to the point that basically one of the most pinnacle moments in TNG is when Picard mind melds with Sarek, and you find out that Sarek just wish he would have told his son, "I love you."
And also he wishes he told him about Burnham.
Yeah, pretty much. And like it really came full circle here with Spock's end, where it's like you got to finally see Spock say, yeah, he's frustrated with his dad. He has so much contentious animosity towards his father. You could see it in the dialogue of how Spock kind of like talks down about Sarek. Like, oh, you believe in that old man. You believe in the way he thinks. Sarek's not the end all be all answer and all that. And the way he delivers that dialogue just hits on a tone where it's like Spock and Sarek, while all us fans want to believe that basically they were a father and son duo that got along well, they weren't. They weren't perfect.
Yes.
And that's what happens with Spock. And it's kind of like one of the more tragic points of Spock's life is like he could never have a stable relationship with his father. Hence why the relationships he does have, say with Kirk, McCoy,
they resonate so well,
and they're so close to him.
Yeah.
Because and why they're close to us is because while we would wish that Spock would be closer to Sarek, it would take away from his relationship with Kirk and McCoy.
And I think most of us know that that's not going to happen. He's not going to end up fixing things with Sarek at this time, and he's not going to probably fix things with Burnham. There's probably going to be like a sense of closure between the two of them, yes, at the end of the season. Otherwise, why even do this? But we already know they can't repair their relationship completely because it would not make sense to what came before. Yes. It would not be aligned with Star Trek canon.
Now, it would make sense for them to get closure, and then you start seeing Spock as that character that we know in the original series, where he's full logic, but he's still willing to listen to other people about their emotions, like how he talks with McCoy. And you got to kind of see that first when he was talking with Stamets, where he says, well, if you don't mind me posing my own theory on everything, and he tells Stamets about his relationship. It's very similar to like how Spock would have talked to McCoy back in the original series.
Yeah.
So you start seeing that start creeping into him because of Burnham, because of the way his relationship with Burnham is kind of changing before him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was a lot going on between their issues and how they made the whole scenario with Stamets work and fleshed out that issue a bit more. There was some strengthening of their issues by reasserting a few choice, phrases, but it does seem like Spock is frustrated with the idea that Burnham shoulders all this responsibility and makes it about her continually. That seemed to be his problem. Spock says that he was the one that put the family at risk because he was the abomination, not you. You were human. It's a bit melodramatic, but I think it works for this scenario. Family issues are melodramatic. And the conversation that you had mentioned just a few moments ago made better sense once Spock and Stamets exchanged words. Spock offering his thoughts to Stamets about Colbert actually strengthened the issues that Spock is going through in this episode and as a whole since he was introduced this season. It's not about you, he says to Stamets. It's that he does not know himself. The fact that he says it's not that Colbert does not know. Well, hold on a sec. He said it's not about you, possibly, right? Is what he says to Stamets. He feels like it could be more about him. The fact that Colbert no longer knows who he is any longer. He doesn't know himself anymore. And that's a great way to frame Spock's issues as well.
Exactly.
That's the problem that Spock has that Burnham's not understanding. I don't have necessarily an issue with you. I'm not broken. My logic isn't broken. I'm in a place where I don't feel like I know myself any longer.
Yes.
And that was made very clear with that conversation between Stamets and Spock. And I have to say, this is the type of writing I adore. I love when they do shit like this, when they get people talking in order to understand a previous scene. It just feels more organic. It feels natural. It doesn't feel
soap opera
contrived or soap opera-y. And I feel like it works. And same thing with the way they got Spock and Burnham talking this week. Again, using Stamets. I love that because one thing that I do complain about is how people talk out loud in TV shows. I'm like, nobody talks to themselves. It doesn't make sense. People don't do that. They have little thoughts like Stamets was doing, saying, you work, you don't work. That makes sense. People have conversations like that, but people don't have full-blown conversations. But the way Discovery continues to express ideas to us, they find creative ways to get our people talking out loud, our characters talking out loud, so that we as an audience understand what they're working on and what is going on. And that scene this week when Stamets says, can you guys please talk out loud, please? When I do things like this, I don't like there to be complete silence when I'm in people's presence. So please talk. That was just a great, easy way. And I think those things kind of go under most people's radars. But when you're analyzing television, that is such a great move to get people talking again. Instead of just having a bunch of exposition and you're wondering why people are talking to us. Because I have a problem in with TV shows that do that, where it feels like they're talking to us. They're talking at us, opposed to talking to each other.
And at that point, that is melodrama.
Yeah, I don't like that. So the fact that they were able to find find a creative way to get Stamets to motivate them to start talking, that then allows us as an audience to understand what's going on and what they're working on.
Exactly.
Very, very smart show.
I thought it was a very smart choice on the writer, on Michelle Paradise's part, because it makes the transition seamless. You don't have this jarring moment where, like, what I always say is, like, when a person stands on stage and starts talking to the audience, you don't do that in television. You don't do that in movies because that's melodrama. That's meant for stage, not for TV or film. So when she chose to actually, like what you said, use that little moment, Stamets needs to hear people talking. It helps us transition. Okay, they're gonna have a talk to each other now. There's a reason,
right? And Dave, it's just little things like that make me appreciate the writing this year. Just little things like that show you just how careful they want to be with the season's narrative. They don't want to make it feel, cheap or lazy by just having people talk. They're just little things like that motivates and gets scenarios going. It gets a situation going in a show. And I am thankful that these writers are doing those little small things this year that really makes all the difference. I also love Spock's cut downs this week. When he walked into Burnham's quarters, I died laughing because he just says he's such an asshole. Like, I love it. He's all, seems like you have no individual expression whatsoever. quite an accomplishment to be uniquely mundane. Like, that's the best cut down of all time.
That's the best cut down.
It's just matter of fact. There's no like.
It's a very Spock thing to say.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. It reminded me of the way he antagonizes McCoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. All right, Dave, let's move to our final thoughts. Give me your final thoughts.
Final thoughts on this episode. I believe that this was another really strong episode from Discovery Season 2. I like the whole concept. I like the use of the characters this time around. I really dug the way that Ariam was portrayed in this episode, and it gave her some importance. And I think that was another great thing that Jonathan Frakes is able to do, is actually make us care about this crew. Not just Burnham, not just Spock, not just Pike. Make us care about the crew. Give us the same feeling we have with all Star Trek, where we care about all the crew besides the captain.
Yeah.
And they did a fantastic job this one. I'm psyched for the next episode. I want to see more about who the Red Angel is trying to stop now. We know that basically they're on a really strange path to find out, like, some big surprise is yet to happen. So all my predictions are out the window. I joked around and said it's Q, it's the Borg. At this point, I'm gonna just say Captain Kirk shows up in the very end. Okay, end of story. But honestly, I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen in next episode, and I give this a solid A. It's another A episode from Discovery Season 2.
All right. Dave, I love this episode. It's really hard to say which is your favorite episode of the season, because every episode just shines.
It's difficult.
It is. It's very difficult. This season has just been one episode after another of just solid greatness. This was yet another example of that. And Michelle Paradise did such a great job with this episode. And it makes me very excited to see what her and Kurtzman do next year as well, now that they're going to be running the show together. And it makes me excited to see what her influence that we keep hearing about will do for the final episodes of the current season. Strong episode, lots of development, reveals, twists that work, that aren't cheap and lazy. They don't feel contrived. Just a well-polished episode, and I'm grateful. And that concludes this week's discussion on Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Episode 9. I want to thank everybody out there listening. Please, if you miss any part of this broadcast, you can find us on demand. Also, head over to patreon.com/RaymanDigital and find us there. Pledge $5 or more a month, gain access to our pre-shows as well as our additional podcasts. It helps you to be entertained, and it helps us keep this studio alive. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Live long and prosper.
I couldn't help but notice your pain. My pain? It runs deep. Share it with me.
End simulation.